Hi everyone, and welcome back to First the Coffee Crochet. In this tutorial we're going to go over how to make the Willow scarf pattern. Now the scarf is in a series that does go with the Willow cowl. I'll leave a link for that pattern down in the description below. So this pattern does use the moss stitch and a double crochet with a chain space. And it is a fairly easy pattern to make, very beginner friendly. So this pattern is written in US terms, and it is worked in rows back and forth from the bottom up. The initial chains at the start of each row do not count as a stitch, and when doing these double crochets rows here, we don't use a turning chain at the start of the row. Instead, what we're going to do is create a single crochet into the stitch below, and then we're going to do another single crochet into the single crochet that we just made, and this creates a nice straight edge. So the finished size of this is 5.5 inches wide by 68 inches long. And if you want to change the length of the scarf, you can just adjust the amount of times that you do the repeat rows of rows 20 through 25. And if you want to change the width of the scarf, your foundation chain just needs to be an even number. So to make the scarf, you'll need 410 yards of a DK number 3 lightweight yarn, and that is without the tassels or fringe on the end of the scarf. So if you want to add that to the end of the scarf, you will need more yardage than the 410 yards. The ones that I put on the end of this one took about an extra 16 yards. You'll also need a 4.5mm crochet hook, a yarn needle to weave in your ends, a pair of scissors, and stitch markers are optional. As always, there is a written version of this pattern available on my website, and I'll leave a link for that down in the description below. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so to start out, you want to create your slip knot. And for our starting chain, we're going to do a chain of 32. So once we have our foundation chain, for row 1, we're going to start doing the moss stitch. And to start out, what we're going to do is do a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So that's the first and that's the second. You'll just insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. Now for this row, we're also going to do another single crochet into the next chain here. And now we'll go into doing the moss stitch. So next we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip 1 chain, and then in the following chain we're going to do another single crochet. And then we'll chain 1, skip the next chain, and then in the following chain do another single crochet. Now we're just going to repeat this, chain 1, skip 1, do a single crochet all the way across until we have 1 chain left in the row. And once we're getting towards the end of row 1, we're going to do our chain 1, skip this chain, do a single crochet in the next to the last chain, and then we're going to have 1 chain left, and we're going to do another single crochet into that last chain. So for row 2, again we're going to be doing the moss stitch, so we'll chain 1, we're going to turn our work, and then starting in this first stitch here, we're going to do a single crochet, then we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip the next stitch here, and then in this chain space here we're going to do a single crochet, chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then in the following chain space do a chain 1. And this is what we're going to do all the way across. So just chain 1, skip a stitch, and do a single crochet into the next chain space. Go ahead and pause the video, and I'll meet you back here towards the end of this row. Okay, so once you've done your single crochet in the last chain space of the previous row, you're going to chain 1, we're going to skip the next stitch, and then in the following stitch we're going to do a single crochet. And that's what we'll be doing for our even rows of the moss stitch. We'll just be starting out with a single crochet, chain one, skip a stitch, single crochet, chain one, skip a stitch, and we'll just do that all the way across the row. Now for row 3 is going to be the repeat row for our odd rows of the moss stitch. Okay, so for this one we're going to chain one and turn our work. Now starting in this first stitch, we're going to do a single crochet, and then we're going to do another single crochet into the next chain space. So each of these odd rows will start with 2 single crochets, one in the first stitch and one in the first chain space. Then we're going to chain one, skip the next stitch, and then in this following chain space right here, we're going to do a single crochet. So we're just going to repeat this all the way across. So you're just going to do a single crochet into the next chain space, chain one, skip the following stitch, and then do a single crochet until you have 1 stitch left in the row. Go ahead and pause the video and I'll meet you back here towards the end of row 3. Okay. At the end of row 3 we're going to have chain one, then we're going into that last chain space there. We're going to do our single crochet, and then we're going to do another single crochet into that last stitch of the row. So your odd rows will start with 2 single crochets, then go into the moss stitch of the single crochet, chain one, skip a stitch, and it will end with 2 single crochets. So we're just going to repeat rows 2 and 3 all the way up through row 19. So row 2 will be used in the even numbered rows, and row 3 will be used in the odd number rows. So you can go ahead and pause the video and I'll meet you back here at the end of row 19. So at the end of row 19, it's going to end with the 2 single crochets because it's an odd row. Now for row 20, we're going to do the double crochet in a chain space. Now these rows aren't started off like you normally would with double crochet rows. We're going to do a stacked single crochet to start off our row just to get the edge nice and straight here. So for row 20, and as you do this repeat throughout the pattern, we're not going to chain before we turn. So we'll just start off the row by turning our work. And then into this first stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. Now we're going to do another single crochet into this single crochet that we just did. So you'll just put your hook between these 2 bars here and go all the way through the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop just like you would with a regular single crochet, and finish that off. So this will count as a double crochet stitch in our first stitch of row 20. Now we're going to chain one, we're going to skip the next stitch, and then we're going to do a double crochet into the next chain space here. So you'll just yarn over, insert your hook into that chain space, yarn over and pull up a loop. That'll give you 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through the remaining 2. So this will count as your first double crochet. You have a chain, you skip this stitch, and then you do a double crochet into the next chain space here. So we'll just repeat the chain one, skip a stitch, double crochet into the next chain space. So we do the chain one, now we double crochet after skipping this stitch, and we go into this chain space here. And we're just going to do this all the way across the row. Chain one, skip a stitch, do a double crochet into the chain space. So you can go ahead and pause the video and I'll meet you back here towards the end of row 20 to finish this row off. So as we get to the end of this row, we're going to do our double crochet in this last chain space here. We're going to chain one, we're going to skip the next stitch, and then in the last stitch of the row, we're going to do a double crochet stitch. Okay, so that's how we do our double crochet chain space rows. And for row 21, we're going to go back into doing the moss stitch, and since this is an odd number row, we're going to be doing the moss stitch row that has the start of the 2 single crochets at the beginning of the row and end of the row. So again, for this one, you'll chain 1, turn your work, and then in that first stitch, do a single crochet. Then in the chain space, do another single crochet. Then you'll chain 1, skip this next stitch, and then in this chain space here, do a single crochet. That's all we're going to do all the way across is 1 chain, skip a stitch, do a single crochet in the chain space. Okay, and at the end of row 21, you're going to do your chain 1, skip this stitch, do a single crochet into that chain space, and then we're going to do a single crochet into this last stitch, which is the top single crochet of that stacked single crochet that we did. So you just insert your hook into that stitch just like you would any other stitch. And go ahead and do a single crochet to finish off the row. Now for row 22, we're going to again do the moss stitch row, but this is an even row, so we'll be doing the start of the row with a single crochet and a chain 1. So we'll chain 1 and turn our work to start off, and then in that first stitch we're going to do a single crochet. We're going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then in this chain space here we're going to do a single crochet. And we're just going to repeat this all the way across the row. Chain 1, and then do a single crochet in the next chain space. Okay, for row 23, we're going to be repeating the same thing we did in row 21. It's an odd number row, so we'll be starting out with the 2 single crochets. So we'll chain 1, turn our work, and then in that first stitch do a single crochet. And then in that next chain space, do a single crochet, chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then in this next chain space here, do a single crochet. So you just want to keep repeating this all the way across the row. Okay, at the end of row 23, just like before, we're going to do a single crochet in that last chain space and then a single crochet into the last stitch. Right, for row 24, we're going to be doing a repeat of row 22, which is our even row. So to start out, we'll chain 1, turn your work, and then in that first stitch, do a single crochet, chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then in that next chain space there, do a single crochet. Just repeat that all the way across. And at the end of row 24, you'll chain 1, skip the next to the last stitch, and then in the last stitch, do a single crochet. For row 25, again, we're going to be repeating row 21, which is our odd number row. So we'll chain 1, turn our work, in that first stitch, do a single crochet. Then in the next chain space, do a single crochet, and then chain 1, skip the next stitch, and do a single crochet in the following chain space. And just repeat that chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next chain space all the way across. Okay, and at the end of row 25, we're just going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, and in that last chain space, do a single crochet, and then do a single crochet in that last stitch. Okay, so now we're going to be doing a repeat of rows 20 through 25. So 20 was our double crochet chain space, and then 5 rows of the moss stitch. And we'll repeat that 45 more times. So that'll be a repeat of rows 20 through 25 for a total of 45 times, and that'll carry you from rows 26 to row 295. Now, if you want to adjust the length of the scarf, then you would change the number of times that you do this repeat. So if you want it longer, do it more than 45 more times. If you want it shorter, you can do it less than 45 more times. Okay, so after you've done your repeat rows and you're up to row 295, for row 296, we're going to go back in and do a repeat of the double crochet chain space, or row 20. So again, remember, do not do a chain there, just turn your work, single crochet into that first stitch, and then single crochet into that single crochet you just made. And chain one, and then in that next chain space here, we're going to do a double crochet. And chain one, skip the next stitch, and the next chain space, do a double crochet. Just repeat this all the way across like you have previously on all the other double crochet rows. And at the end of this row again, you'll chain one, skip the next to the last stitch, and then do a double crochet into that last stitch. So for rows 297 through 315, we're going to go back to doing the moss stitch. And just like before, you're just going to be doing the repeat of row 21 and 22. 21 is for the odd number rows, 22 is the repeat for the even number rows. So instead of doing 5 rows of the moss stitch, you'll be doing 19 rows of the moss stitch to do the last part of the scarf. Once you're done with row 315, you can go ahead and fasten off and weave in your ends. If you would like to put tassels on the end of this, it is a good idea. It does really go well, and I think it finishes off these ends very well, because with the moss stitch, it can be a little spaced out on the end here where you started. So this is how the ends looked after I put tassels on them. For these tassels, it did require about an extra of 16 yards to do. So again, that is optional. It just does help finish off the ends very well. So thanks for watching, and if you like these videos, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified as new tutorials come out.